In a dark red room, the color of the walls is close to that of raw liver, is a tall woman dressed cartoonishly in too tight silk shorts, her breasts pulled up and pushed forward by the yellow blouse tied beneath them. Her black hair is piled high and knotted on top of her head. Standing beside her is a short man wearing an olive t-shirt and expensive blue jeans. He is holding in his right hand a wallet and Nokia mobile phone with a red, white, and blue faceplate. The red room contains a bed upon which are white satin-style sheets and an ox-blood bedspread. At the foot of the bed is a small wooden table, upon which is a small stone statue of a woman with enormous hips and a candle holder. The woman hands the man a small red candle. Here, she says, light it. Me? Yes, she says, if you want to have me. I should have just got you to suck me off in the car. Perhaps, she says. Don't you want me? Her hand runs up her body, from a thigh to breast, a gesture of presentation as if she were demonstrating a new product. Red silk scarves over the lamp in the corner of the room make the light red. The man looks at her hungrily, then he takes the candle from her and pushes it into the candle holder. You got a light? She passes him a book of matches. He tears off a match, lights the wick. It flickers and then burns with a steady flame, which gives the illusion of motion to the faceless salute beside it, all hips and breasts. Put the money beneath the statue. $50. Yes, she says. Now come love me. He unbuttons his blue jeans and removes his olive t-shirt. She massages his white shoulders with her brown fingers. Then she turns him over and begins to make love to him with her fingers and her tongue. It seems to him that the lights in the red room have been dimmed, and the sole illumination comes from the candle, which burns with a bright flame. What's your name? He asks her. Bilquis, she tells him, raising her head, with a Q. A what? Never mind. He is gasping now. Let me fuck you, he says. I have to fuck you. Okay, hon, she says. We'll do it. But will you do something for me while you're doing it? Hey, he says, suddenly touchy. I'm paying you, you know. She straddles him in one smooth movement, whispering, I know, honey, I know, you're paying me. And I mean, look at you. I should be paying you. I'm so lucky. He purses his lips, trying to show that her hooker talk is having no effect on him. He can't be taken. That she's a street whore, for Christ's sakes. Well, he's practically a producer and knows all about last-minute rip-offs, but she doesn't ask for money. Instead, she says, honey, while you're giving it to me, while you're pushing that big hard thing inside of me, will you worship me? Will I what? She is rocking back and forth on him. The engorged head of his penis is being rubbed against the wet lips of her vulva. Will you call me goddess? Will you pray to me? Will you worship me with your body? He smiles. Is that all she wants? We've all got our kinks. At the end of the day, sure, he says. She reaches her hand between her legs and slips him inside her. Is that good? Is it, goddess? He asks, gasping. Worship me, honey, says Bilquis, the hooker. Yes, he says, I worship your breasts and your hair and your cunt. I worship your thighs and your eyes and your cherry red lips. Yes, she croons, riding him. I worship your nipples from which the milk of life flows. Your kiss is honey and your touch scorches like fire, and I worship it. His words are becoming more rhythmic now, keeping pace with the thrust and roll of their bodies. Bring me your lust in the morning and bring me relief and your blessing in the evening. Let me walk in dark places unharmed, and let me come to you once more and sleep beside you and make love with you again. I worship you with everything that is within me and everything inside my mind, with everywhere I've been in my dreams and my... He breaks off, panting for breath. What are you doing? That feels amazing, so amazing. And he looks down at his hips, at the place where the two of them can join. But her forefinger touches his chin and pushes his head back, so he is looking only at her face and at the ceiling once again. Keep talking, honey, she says. Don't stop. Doesn't it feel good? It feels better than anything has ever felt. He tells her, meaning it as he says it. Your eyes are stars burning in the shit, the firmament, and your lips are gentle waves that lick the sand, and I worship them. And now he's thrusting deeper and deeper inside her. He feels electric, as if his whole lower body has become sexually charged, priapic, engorged, blissful. Bring me your gift, he mutters, no longer knowing what he is saying. Your one true gift, and make me always this, always so, I pray. And then the pressure crests into orgasm, blasting his mind into void, and his head and self, an entire being, a perfect blank as he thrusts deeper into her, and deeper still, eyes closed, spasming, and luxuriates in the moment. And then he feels a lurch, and it seems to him that he is hanging head down, although the pleasure continues. He opens his eyes, he thinks, grasping for thought and reason again, of birth and wonders without fear. In a moment of perfect postcoital clarity, whether what he sees is some kind of illusion. This is what he sees. He is inside her to the chest, and as he stares at this in disbelief and wonder, she rests both hands upon his shoulders and puts gentle pressure on his body. He slides further inside her. How are you doing this to me, he asks. Or he thinks he asks, but perhaps it is only in his head. You're doing it, honey, she whispers. He feels the lips of her vulva tight around his upper chest and back, constricting and enveloping him. He wonders what this would look like to somebody watching them. He wonders why he is not scared, and then he knows. I worship you with my body, he whispers as he pushes him inside her. Her labia pulls slickly across his face, and his eyes slip into darkness. She stretches on the bed like a huge cat, and then she yawns. Yes, she says, you do. The Nokia phone plays a high electrical transposition of the Ode to Joy. She picks it up and thumbs a key and puts the telephone to her ear. Her belly is flat, her labia is small and closed. A sheen of sweet sweat glistens on her forehead and on her upper lip. Yeah, she says, and then she says, no, honey, he's not here. He's gone away. He turns the telephone off before she flops out on the bed in the dark red room. Then she stretches once more, and she closes her eyes, and she sleeps. They took her to the cemetery in a big old Cadillac. They took her to the cemetery, but they did not bring her back. Old song. I have taken the liberty, said Mr. Wednesday, washing his hands in the men's room of Jack's Crocodile Bar, of ordering food for myself to be delivered to your table. We have much to discuss, after all. I don't think so, said Shadow. He dried his own hands on a paper towel and crumpled it, and dropped it into the bin. You need a job, said Wednesday. People don't hire ex-cons. You folk make them uncomfortable. I have a job waiting, a good job. Would that be the job at the mussel farm? Maybe, said Shadow. Nope, you don't. Robbie Burton's dead. Without him, the mussel farm's dead too. You're a liar, of course, and a good one. The best you will ever meet, but I'm afraid I'm not lying to you about this. He reached into his pocket, produced a folded newspaper, and handed it to Shadow. Page 7, he said. Come on back to the bar. You can read it at the table. Shadow pushed open the bar, back into the bar. The air was blue with smoke, and the Dixie cups were on the junk box singing Iko, Iko. Shadow smiled slightly in recognition of the old children's song. The barman pointed to a table in the corner. There was a bowl of chili and a burger at one side of the table, a rare steak and a bowl of fries laid in the place across from it. Look at my king, all dressed in red. Iko, Iko all day. Bet you $5 he'll kill you dead. Jokamamu Vimnane. Shadow took his seat at the table. He put the newspaper down. This is my first meal as a free man. I'll wait until after I've eaten to read your page 7. Shadow ate his hamburger. It was better than prison hamburgers. The chili was good, but he decided after a couple of mouthfuls, not the best in the state. Laura made a great chili. She used lean meat, dark kidneys, carrots cut small, a bottle or so of dark beer, and freshly sliced hot peppers. She would let the chili cook for a while, then add red wine, lemon juice, and a pinch of fresh dill, and finally measure out and add her chili powders. On more than one occasion, Shadow had tried to get her to show him how she made it. He would watch everything she did, from slicing the onions and dropping them into the olive oil at the bottom of the pot. He'd even written down the recipe ingredient by ingredient, and he had once made Laura's chili for himself on a weekend when she had been out of town. It had tasted okay. It was certainly edible, but it had not been Laura's chili. The news item on page 7 was the first account of his wife's death that Shadow had read. Laura Moon, whose age was given in the article at 27, and Robbie Burton, 39, were in Robbie's car on the interstate when they swerved into the path of a 32-wheeler. The truck brushed Robbie's car and sent it spinning off the side of the road. Rescue crews pulled Robbie and Laura from the wreckage. They were both dead by the time they arrived at the hospital. Shadow folded the newspaper up once more and slid it back across the table toward Wednesday, who was gorging himself on a steak so bloody and so blue it might never have been introduced to a kitchen flame. "Here, take it back," said Shadow. Robbie had been driving. He must have been drunk. Although the newspaper account said nothing about this, Shadow found himself imagining Laura's face when she realized that Robbie was too drunk to drive. The scenario unfolded in Shadow's mind, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. Laura shouted at Robbie, shouting at him to pull off the road, when the thud of car against truck and the steering wheel wrenching over. The car on the side of the road, broken glass glittering like ice and diamonds in the headlights, blood pooling in rubies on the road beside them. Two bodies being carried from the wreck or laid neatly by the side of the road. "Well?" asked Mr. Wednesday. He had finished his steak, devoured it like a starving man. Now he was munching the French fries, spearing them with his fork. "You're right," said Shadow. "I don't have a job." Shadow took a quarter from his pocket, tails up. He flicked it up in the air, knocking it against his finger as it left his hand, giving it a wobble as if it were turning, caught it, slapped it down on the back of his hand. "Call," he said. "Why?" asked Wednesday. "I don't want to work for anyone with worse luck than me. Call." "Heads," said Mr. Wednesday. "Sorry," said Shadow, without even bothering to glance at the quarter. "It was tails. I rigged the toss." "Rigged games are the easiest ones to beat," said Wednesday, wagging a square finger at Shadow. "Take another look at it." Shadow glanced down at it. The head was face up. "I must have fumbled the toss," he said, puzzled. "You do yourself a disservice," said Wednesday, and he grinned. "I'm just a lucky guy." Then he looked up. "Well, I never. Mad Sweeney, will you have a drink with us?" "Southern Comfort and Coke straight up," said a voice from behind Shadow. "I'll go and talk to the barman," said Wednesday. He stood up and began to make his way toward the bar. "Aren't you going to ask what I'm drinking?" called Shadow. "I already know what you're drinking," said Wednesday. And then he was standing by the bar. Patsy Cline started to sing Walking After Midnight on the jukebox. The Southern Comfort and Coke sat down beside Shadow. He had a short ginger beard. He wore a denim jacket covered with bright sew-on patches under the jacket and stained white T-shirt. On the T-shirt was printed, "If you can't eat it, drink it, smoke it, or snort it, then fuck it." He wore a baseball cap in which was printed, "The only woman I've ever loved was another man's wife, my mother." He opened a soft pack of Lucky Strikes with a dirty thumbnail, took a cigarette, offered one to Shadow. Shadow was about to take one automatically. He did not smoke. But a cigarette makes good barter material. When he realized that he was no longer inside, he shook his head. "You're working for our man, then?" asked the bearded man. He was not sober, although he was not yet drunk. "It looks that way," said Shadow. "What do you do?" The bearded man lit his cigarette. "I'm a leprechaun," he said with a grin. Shadow did not smile. "Really?" he said. "Shouldn't you be drinking Guinness?" "Stereotypes. You have to learn to think outside the box," said the bearded man. "There's a lot more to Ireland than Guinness." "You don't have an Irish accent." "I've been over here too fucking long." "So are you originally from Ireland?" "I told you I'm a leprechaun. We don't come from fucking Moscow." "I guess not." Wednesday returned to the table. 3 drinks held easily in his paw-like hands. "Southern Comfort and Coke for you, Mad Sweeney, my man, and a Jack Daniels for me. This is for you, Shadow." "What is it?" "Taste it." The drink was a tawny golden color. Shadow took a sip, tasting an old blend of sour and sweet on his tongue. He could taste the alcohol underneath in a strange blend of flavors. It reminded him of a little of prison hooch, brewed in a garbage bag from rotten fruit and bread and sugar and water, but it was sweeter and far stranger. "Okay," said Shadow. "I tasted it. What is it?" "Mead," said Wednesday. "Honey wine, the drink of heroes, the drink of the gods." Shadow took another tentative sip. Yes, he could taste the honey, he decided. That was one of the tastes. Tastes kind of like pickle juice, he said. Sweet pickle juice wine. Tastes like a drunken diabetic's piss. agreed Wednesday. I hate the stuff. Then why did you bring it for me? Asked Shadow, reasonably. Wednesday stared at Shadow with his mismatched eyes. One of them, Shadow decided, was a glass eye, but he could not decide which one. I brought you mead to drink because it's traditional, and right now we need all the tradition we can get. It seals our bargain. We haven't made a bargain. Sure we have. You work for me now. You protect me. You transport me from place to place. You run errands in an emergency, but only in an emergency. You hurt people who need to be hurt. In the unlikely event of my death, you will hold my vigil, and in return I shall make sure that your needs are adequately taken care of. He's hustling you, said Mad Sweeney, rubbing his bristly ginger beard. He's a hustler. Damn straight I'm a hustler, said Wednesday. That's why I need someone to look out for my best interests. The song in the jukebox ended, and for a moment the bar felt quiet, every conversation at a lull. Someone once told me that you only get those everybody shuts up at once moments at 20 past or 20 to the hour, said Shadow. Sweeney pointed to the clock above the bar, held in the massive and indifferent jaws of a stuffed alligator head. The time was 11:20. There, said Shadow. Damned if I know why that happens. I know why, said Wednesday. Drink your mead. Shadow knocked at the rest of the mead back in one long gulp. It might be better over ice, he said. Or it might not, said Wednesday. It's terrible stuff. That it is, agreed Mad Sweeney. You excuse me for a moment, gentlemen, but I find myself in deep and urgent need of a lengthy pass. He stood up and walked away, an impossibly tall man. He had to be almost 7 feet tall, decided Shadow. A waitress wiped a cloth across the table and took their empty places. Wednesday told her to bring the same again for everyone, although this time Shadow's mead was to be on the rocks. Anyway, said Wednesday, that's what I need of you. Would you like to know what I want? Asked Shadow. Nothing could make me happier. The waitress brought the drink. Shadow sipped his mead on the rocks. The ice did not help. If anything, it sharpened the sourness and made the taste linger in the mouth after the mead was swallowed. However, Shadow consoled himself. It did not taste particularly alcoholic. He was not ready to be drunk, not yet. He took a deep breath. Okay, said Shadow. My life, which for 3 years has been a long way from being the greatest life there has ever been, just took a distinct and sudden turn for the worse. Now there are a few things I need to do. I want to go to Laura's funeral. I want to say goodbye. I should wind up her stuff. If you still need me, I want to start at $500 a week. The figure was a stab in the dark. Wednesday's eyes revealed nothing. If we're happy working together in 6 months' time, you raise it to $1,000 a week. He paused. It was the longest speech he'd made in years. You say you may need people to be hurt. Well, I'm hurt people. If they're trying to hurt you, but I don't hurt people for fun or for profit. I won't go back to prison. Once was enough. You won't have to, said Wednesday. No, said Shadow, I won't. He finished the last of the mead. He wondered suddenly, somewhere in the back of his head, whether the mead was responsible for loosening his tongue. But the words were coming out of him like the water spraying from a broken fire hydrant in summer, and he could not have stopped them if he had tried. I don't like you, Mr. Wednesday, or whatever your real name may be. We are not friends. I don't know how you got off that plane without me seeing you, or how you trailed me here. But I'm at a loose end right now. When we are done, I'll be gone, and if you piss me off, I'll be gone too. Until then, I'll work for you. Very good, said Wednesday. Then we have a compact, and we are agreed. What the hell, said Shadow across the room. Mad Sweeney was feeding quarters into the jukebox. Wednesday spat in his hand and extended it. Shadow shrugged. He spat in his own palm. They clasped hands. Wednesday began to squeeze. Shadow squeezed back. After a few seconds, his hand began to hurt. Wednesday held the grip a little longer, and then he let go. Good, he said. Good, very good. So one last glass of evil, vile, fucking mead to seal our deal, and then we are done. It'll be a southern comfort and a Coke for me, said Sweeney, lurching back from the jukebox. The jukebox began to play the Velvet Underground's Who Loves the Sun. Shadow thought it was a strange song to find on a jukebox. It seemed very unlikely, but then this whole evening had become increasingly unlikely. Shadow took the quarter he had used for the coin toss from the table, and enjoying the sensation of a freshly milled coin against his fingers, producing it in his right hand between forefinger and thumb. He appeared to take it into his left hand in one smooth movement, while casually finger palming it. He closed his left hand on the imaginary quarter. Then he took a second quarter in his right hand between finger and thumb, and as he pretended to drop that coin into the left hand, he let the palmed quarter fall onto his right hand, striking the quarter he held there on the way. The chink confirmed the illusion that both coins were in his left hand, while they were now both held safely in his right.